It's been said that home is where the heart is, but for Emma, only one place will do.
Not long after the oath to Queen Emma, Sven Forkbeard and his Viking fleet set sail from Denmark once again. The worst and most crippling invasions the Saxons had ever known. Relentless raids with the Vikings' greatest weapons, mobility and surprise. Where would they land? When would they strike? There were no answers, for there were no warnings when Vikings came. Rivers became roads, roads became staging points for battle, each longship manned by a seagoing warband of brothers armed and ready for close action. Sven's Vikings were both a fleet and an army, almost invincible. No one felt safe, not even in a palace. A flood had come, a flood of the fury of the Northmen. In less than a year, the Vikings found the foothold of conquest. Into this maelstrom, and in the royal bed of the Saxon kings, Emma of Normandy, Queen of England, delivered her firstborn son. But not even a lavish canopy bed covered in rich purple brought comfort, for she was torn by bitter strife between her new people and those of her ancestors. By all accounts, it was an easy birth, a beautiful child, a perfectly formed son, thought by all as a good omen. Perhaps for Emma, a good sign for a damaged marriage. Edward, he was named, possibly for the king's martyred brother, perhaps to put to rest the king's demons. The king was thrilled to know he could still father a child at the ripe old age of 39, and he was more than ready to bestow gifts to his young queen. Ethelred had his faults, but he was generous. At their marriage, the king bestowed jewels and lands to his new bride. But now as queen mother, more jewels, more lands, more houses. Before she died, a half-century later, Emma of Normandy was one of the wealthiest women in Europe. One of her favorite estates was Wargrave in Upper Wessex, named for a mass war grave where Vikings had buried their dead. One building that centuries of locals called Emma's Barn remained well until the 1800s. But the land and manor house that meant the most to her was God begot. Its Saxon words means goods getter, and boy did she get the goods. Today, just a 2-minute walk from Winchester Cathedral, where we find Our Lady's bones in a box, is God Begot House. The name is painted in big, bold letters across the front. The site of Emma's Manor House is in the city center, right on High Street. Winchester was a Roman city. The Chester comes from the word castra, Latin for camp. Cities like Lancaster, Colchester, Manchester, and Winchester were once Roman camps or Roman forts. The Winchester of Emma's day was already 600 to 700 years old, and later called King Alfred's City, planned, laid out in a grid by the great king himself. A thriving, bustling city, more important than London, and the jewel of Saxon culture. Winchester was built up behind Roman walls, protected by Roman walls. In our day, parts of the 2,000-year-old Roman walls still exist. When Emma arrived in Winchester in 1002, she walked on Roman streets. It was recorded that Queen Emma would walk up and down Winchester's 1,000-year-old high street, greeting the townsfolk, often with her children on their way to prayers in the Old Minster. Every time she stepped out her front door, she walked where Romans walked. Oxford historian Dr. Daniel Gerard conjures up the perfect image for us. Emma walked among ghosts in togas. Love it. If you visit Winchester and God Begot House, Emma's place, you too will walk on a Roman street. The present house dates from Tudor times, hence the distinctive oak half-timbers over walls of wattle and daub, painted white, like crossbeams over stucco. Today, God Begot House is an Italian restaurant. Down a narrow alleyway is a side door to the Royal Oak Pub. A modern plaque gives a brief history of the building and a date of the year 1002, the year Emma came to England. Every time I'm in Winchester, I never fail to walk up and down High Street in the footsteps of Emma of Normandy and of Romans, and grab a bite of lunch at Emma's place. Yes, the young girl from across the sea had found much. A new home, several homes, a crown and a country, a new son and prince. Emma of Normandy knew exactly how to secure her future and her place in the line of kings. One ancient text describes her as handsome, astute, and fertile. Certainly not the vernacular of the 21st century, but Emma certainly embraced it, as would the indomitable Eleanor of Aquitaine a century and a half later. Two queens who turned heads and history. It's not hard to imagine Emma's nemesis, Godwin, Earl of Wessex, lamenting this truth. I can almost hear him saying, "She has become an axis upon which the king's head turns. If she knows how to use a woman's power, she may prove formidable." A woman's power. Emma was happy to oblige. For not long after the birth of Edward, a daughter arrived, Godgifu, Saxon for God's gift, a popular name for girls in Saxon England, and of a quite famous Godgifu from history that I feel certain you will know. We know her by the Latinized form of her name, Godiva. Yep, the one and only Lady Godiva. Godiva's husband was Leofrich of Mercia, the most powerful earl in North England, making Godiva a lady, and a contemporary of Queen Emma. Possibly they were friends. At least that's the way I wrote them in my novel. We'll hear more about the real Godiva. Note I didn't say see more of her in a future episode, but her story is not what you may think. When writing my story of Queen Emma, I took off on the strong Saxon name of Godgifu, which was the true name of Emma's daughter with Ethelred. So I gave her a pet name, Gigi, French for brilliant, a perfect mixture of Saxon and French. And after Gigi, Emma and Ethelred welcomed a second son, Alfred. Alfred the Atheling, throne-worthy prince, whose gruesome murder would one day shock England to the core, put his mother on trial, and leave a deep, dark mark in the annals of the 11th century. Not even a daughter, gift from God, and a baby son would do much to mend Emma's broken heart and ease the pain from all that had happened since she came to England, her marred marriage, and the horrors of St. Brice's Day. Not even a mother's joy could have quelled Emma's fear with Vikings at their door. Would her children have a future at all? They were in the eye of a storm. The winds of war were upon them. England had had years of peace after great King Alfred saved Wessex and England. Over time, goodwill became the fruit of peace between Saxon and Dane. Their mixed bloods brought hope that a broad and lasting unity could be reached. No longer farmers with a taste for blood, fierce Northmen became peaceful settlers who tasted the bounty from the soil they tilled. As time passed, they forgot the sea, forgot their army, and thought only of the land, their own land. No longer weeds among the wheat, they had put down roots. But all that changed because of the folly of King Ethelred the Unready. Now, no peace for England. An enraged Viking king held the north. Sweyn Forkbeard's swarms of Vikings hit every coastline north and south, his rage beyond all challenge. Saxon knights lit by the glow of burning towns. Vikings left nothing standing but roofless walls and scorched fields. In her brief time as England's queen, the young Norman princess had found much and lost much. Never truly cut from her roots, her father, Richard the Fearless, great Duke of Normandy, had left his daughter a place in history, and left to history a place atop one of the most majestic places on earth. A chapel of stone perched on the tip of a mountain of pure granite at the northern edge of Normandy, looking down upon the sea. Mont Saint-Michel, built to honor St. Michael the Archangel. Like a castle in the clouds, shrouded in mist, its silhouette seems to rise up from the sea. You don't come upon Mont Saint-Michel, it comes upon you. The French call it Le Mauvais, the Marvel. In the 8th century, a monastic community was established on this tidal island to protect against Vikings. 2 centuries later, Queen Emma's father, Duke Richard I, built the first monastery at the highest point atop the jagged granite over centuries of crypts of stones and bones. His son, Emma's brother, Duke Richard II, built the Norman Abbey we see today. Of course, you must climb all the way to the top to see it. The destructive Norsemen had become the constructive Norman dukes. Centuries of feet have trod up its winding stone pathway round and round, past charming French shops and eateries in a small village of 80 souls. Once called the City of Books, this wonder of the Western world has beckoned minds and manuscripts for a millennium, and still does. On our visit, we were thrilled to witness a modern-day monk ring the great bell for prayer. One writer beautifully captured the magic and the mood of Le Merveille, the marvel. For centuries, pilgrims walked across its sands, careful of its quicksand. The sea, responsive to the moon's command, sweeps in, and it becomes an island. Braved by centuries of the faithful, the deadly tides of Mont Saint-Michel are so swift they rise 1 meter per second and can crest 4 stories high. Victor Hugo, immortal French author of Les Miserables and The Hunchback of Notre Dame, described the tides of Mont Saint-Michel as à la vitesse du cheval au galop, as swift as a galloping horse. Throughout Europe's many wars, this fortress on the sea, this jewel of Normandy, has been besieged but never fallen. In the 100 Years' War, news of the island's stand against the English reached a young French peasant girl in Orléans, and the tide of war was turned. Inspired by Mont Saint-Michel's holdout against powerful English armies, Joan of Arc led her countrymen in her first victory to recapture France from England, the Siege of Orléans. These strong women who turned the tide of history. In her new country, Emma of Normandy had gained all, lost all, and gained all again. This she would do many times over in her long life, a life as tumultuous as her times and as the tides of Mont Saint-Michel. But she had gained a lasting place in the line of English kings, a place never to be eclipsed, Emma's place. And she was just getting started. Or in her words, à demain, until tomorrow.
Join us next time atop the white cliffs of Dover for a faithful meeting that will change the course of Emma's life and history.